Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. We're going to get started right now, and I hope everyone is staying safe and sane. I know this is kind of a weird time that we've entered. And before we get started, I just wanted to address that. We'll be talking about the CARES Act today, and there's a lot of good information in here that it's important for folks to know. But we also want to acknowledge kind of the time that we're going through. Actually, just before I started the broadcast, we just got an alert that New York specifically had its worst 24 hours as far as fatalities are concerned, just over 560. So we just want to acknowledge that it's certainly a sobering number, and we're hopeful that we hit a plateauing of that number soon. But for our purposes, for the next hour or so, we're going to go over some of the key provisions and takeaways of this CARES Act to hopefully give you a good sense of what you need to do as an individual or as a small business owner to ensure that you're getting everything that you need. So as we go through the presentation, as I mentioned, if anyone has any questions, please be sure to leave them in the box, the question box, and we'll try to address as many as we can. We'll also have an email address and other resources for you to utilize following the broadcast, and we'll make those available upon request for anyone that has any other questions. My name is Dan Sharkey. I'm a senior relationship manager here at 12 Points. My phone number and email are listed here should you have any follow-up once the webinar is done. We'll be happy to answer any questions that you may have or direct you to the proper place to where those could be answered. Obviously, this is a very fluid situation, and we'll try to update you as much as we can. So what are we going to cover today? There's going to be two major areas of focus, both for individuals and for small businesses. The Coronavirus Aid, Relief, and Economic Security Act is what the acronym CARES Act stands for, and we'll get into detail about exactly what provisions are relevant for you at home. What we're not going to do, I think that's important too, is we're not going to give you the full rundown of exactly the ins and outs of every part of the bill. If you're interested in that level of detail, any type of major accounting firm or law firm or other U.S. government agency is likely to have that information. But what we're really trying to provide is cutting through all the noise and all the red tape and all the other smaller provisions to really give you what we think are the really big takeaways. It's not necessarily a complete list, but these are the things that we think for the individual and small business owner are the most important to know, and that we want to leave you with enough information that you can be confident that you're making the right decisions. So first, we're going to start with individuals. And as we go through the presentation, you're going to hear me say a couple of times that due to the haste in which this piece of legislation was put through, a lot of the mechanics of exactly how this program are going to be enacted are still a little bit fuzzy. As with most things that the government does, they're very big on broad ideas, but very light on intricate details. So we'll make sure to point out where things have yet to be fully vetted and fully teased out so that there's no kind of misunderstanding about where we are in the process. But let's just start with the individual, and we'll talk about small business owners in a second. But if you're an individual, you've heard commonly about getting money in the mail. $1,200 for individuals, $2,400 for a family. Those are dependent upon your level of income. As per the New York Times, the cap for individual filers is around $75,000. But there are other levels in which you'll be getting less than the amounts here listed. So it's important to understand exactly what to expect and exactly what level of income you have in terms of whether or not you'll actually be receiving checks from the Treasury. The expansion of unemployment, addition to the 600 weekly payout, unemployed workers for a period of 4 months through July 31st. At the state level, which is really more important, the state level unemployment insurance has been extended by an additional 13 weeks through the end of the year. We're broadcasting from Massachusetts, and I'm sure a lot of our listeners are also in Massachusetts. Please go to mass.gov. They have a lot of the information you will need to file unemployment insurance in the state of Massachusetts. I would encourage all those in other states to do that as well, to check their local state government to determine what their eligibility benefits are. A lot of states, due to the quick response from state legislatures and particularly governors, have removed a lot of the red tape that it usually takes to claim unemployment insurance, and they've really expedited the process and removed a lot of the restrictions. So if you do find yourself in a case where you have lost some income, and you've either been furloughed or let go due to the impact of the coronavirus and COVID-19, please go check your state website. Based upon the information available here in Massachusetts, the process for applying has really been directed through the website. It's a far more user-friendly experience. So I would encourage everyone to do the same in whatever state that they currently reside in. Retirement plans. This has also been a key topic. The tax filing deadline has been moved from April 15th to July 15th, and with that change has also been the ability to contribute to an IRA up until that date as well, July 15th. If you're looking to tap any cash from a retirement plan, normally if you're under the age of 59 and a half, there's a 10% penalty along with the applicable taxes that would have to be paid. That has been waived for amounts up to $100,000. Additionally, if you want to take a loan for against your IRA, that's also an ability to have that. So please check and determine whether or not that's the best course of action. What we're not going to cover in this particular presentation as to whether or not that's a good idea. So please talk to a financial professional or your financial advisor or financial consultant, whoever that you may work with, to determine what the best course of action is before you do take that step. We're just trying to give you what the rules are, so as you kind of navigate your way through this process, it's clear as to what the understanding is. Additionally, for folks who are currently retired or are currently over the age of 70 and a half, or as per the new Secure Act, age 72, there have been a 1-year delay in required minimum distributions. If you have a tax deferred account, once you reach the age of 72, you have to begin taking distributions from that account. That has actually been waived for 2020, so you do not need to take those distributions. Now, why is that important? The reason that is important for the individual is that if you have income or if you have cash available from other sources that you do not need to take from a tax deferred account, you can avoid paying taxes on these distributions. It's a really critical provision, and it could save folks significant dollars in tax savings by just leaving the money in those accounts. Additionally, if you have taken an RMD within the last 60 days, you can put that money back, which is really important because that would count as a rollover, again, avoiding the taxation on that particular distribution. So if you are taking RMDs and you have the ability to take cash from other places, it's something that you may want to consider to have the tax savings on those distributions. Student loans, there has been a lot discussed about student loans as well. Involuntary collections on student loans have been suspended through the end of the year for direct federal loans or FFEL loans. For an employer is concerned, if they're making student loan payments by the employer, those will be excluded up to that amount from your gross income. As with all of these things, there's a lot more detail that goes with than what we're providing. So if you do have questions, it's important to go and utilize the resources that we'll discuss at the end of the presentation to really understand exactly what is going to be covered and not covered by this law. Paid family leave. There have been a lot of changes and a lot of questions that have come about through the COVID pandemic, and one of them particularly is, since everyone is now working from home, what type of leave is now going to be covered? So there have been some changes. You can see those here, up to 80 hours of paid sick leave for qualifying COVID-19 related purposes, and up to 12 weeks of partially paid FMLA leave to care for a son and daughter due to a school closure. I know I'm dealing with that personally. I'm sure most people who are listening have their kids at home, and the ability to depending on what you do, the ability to work and provide childcare can be rather difficult. So before you make a determination about whether or not you are covered, ensure that you talk to HR, ensure you talk to anyone at your employer to determine whether or not you benefit from these particular provisions. The Family Medical Leave Act takes into account a variety of different attributes depending upon the size of your company and all those kind of things. So there's really no one blanket everyone fits all. But if you do have a question, it's important that you raise it to HR so to ensure that you get the benefits that you're entitled to. So what we really want to encourage you to do is at least think about the question, but if you're going to be impacted from a family leave standpoint, and talk to HR or your benefits provider to see what you're entitled to as part of this new law. Again, there have been changes to paid sick leave and leave provisions as per the Families First Act. So again, the biggest question, or what I would really encourage you to think about is, if this is impacting you, just make sure that you ask the question before you do anything else. Okay, so now there is the bigger part of all this, and the more confusing part for a lot of small business owners out there is the Paycheck Protection Program, otherwise known as PPP. You're going to be hearing a lot about this. This is going to be top of mind for everyone, because it not only impacts small business owners, but it also impacts the employees directly as well. We're all kind of in this boat together. So what we're going to do is go over some of the key provisions here to help you understand exactly what's covered, how that's going to impact you, how it's going to impact small business. So what is the Paycheck Protection Program? It authorizes, as of now, up to $350 billion of forgivable loans to small businesses to pay their employees during this epidemic. We'll get into more of the details in a second, but that's the gist. It is a loan functionality to inject cash into small businesses to keep their employees on the payroll as we all deal with this crisis. So the brief overview, as I mentioned, it's about $350 billion. It's currently being administered by the Small Business Administration, which is going to provide these loans to the small businesses. It's 100% guaranteed by the Small Business Administration and explicitly guaranteed by the full faith and credit of the U.S. Treasury. So that's also really important. The loans themselves are going to be made by SBA banks and other vendors. We'll have a full list in a second. And they include the whole swath of U.S. business, whether it be nonprofits, sole proprietors, independent contracts. You're all eligible if you meet certain criteria. And they are eligible for forgiveness. We will talk about what the forgiveness stipulations are. They're fairly lenient. And again, I want to emphasize that this is one of the areas that is a little bit unclear about exactly how we will go about this. Now, the theme of this plan and what the intent is again to inject cash into small businesses to keep their employees paid and whole during this time of quarantine. How that will actually play out is still unclear, and that guidance has yet to be provided, but that's the intent of the program. So we want to make sure that we're being clear as to exactly what's happening and what the intent of the government to do in this particular situation is. So let's talk about the kind of the where, what, who, how, and why. So when can I apply? So today is the first day that small businesses and proprietorships can submit loan applications to their particular SBA lenders. The application is standard. There's one form. All the loans, as per the guidance that we have received, are going to look the same. We have talked to several small banks and SBA lenders, and their initial reaction is that they're going to process every loan with identical terms in order to get through the massive inflow of applications that they're going to receive. Today is the first day, and it runs through June 30th. But time is somewhat of the essence. If you are a small business owner and you want to take advantage of this program, as I mentioned, there's a cap on the dollars. So it's really important to get an application in sooner rather than later, because eventually those dollars are going to run dry, and we want to ensure that your application's at least in the pipeline. Now, how they will navigate who gets processed first and all of those questions, that's still to be determined. That's one of the key provisions that I was mentioning earlier that is a little bit unclear. But what is not unclear is that if today's the first day, there's no real reason to wait if you want to take advantage of this program. Where can I apply? Any SBA lender, a federally insured depository institution, federally insured credit union, farm credit system institution. Now, to be clear, not everyone who falls into one of these categories will participate in the program. There may be some who choose just that they can't handle the volume, or for whatever other reason do not want to participate. So just please know that. But any type of small business administration relationship that you have, that would be the best place to start to see if they're participating in the program. Again, not everyone will participate, but a vast majority of them will. You'll see this website that I have provided here, www.sba.gov. that is going to be one of the best resources that you can use for more information or to really help answer some quick questions. It's actually, for a government website, it's very well laid out. The coronavirus kind of ribbon is on the very first page when you actually click through, and they spell out in very clear language the information that is currently and readily known. Now, there's still a lot of stuff that is still to be determined in terms of guidance from a lot of these government agencies on exactly how this will be administered, but that is going to be your best resource today to go in and check to help answer any questions that you may have, or to get more guidance on what you should be doing now to get into the system. Who can apply? So as I was mentioning, there's a whole host of organizations that are going to qualify under this particular plan. So nonprofits, veteran organizations, tribal businesses, even if you're self-employed or you have a sole proprietorship, you do qualify for assistance under this program. Businesses in certain industries who also have more than 500 employees, there are other provisions, such as if you're in the service industry and you have more than one location, but each location is under 500 people, as one example, you would qualify under that stipulation. So just make sure that you read the provisions. We'll talk a little bit about those in a second. But they made this law very, very broad to really help those in need, regardless of the structure of your organization. Okay, so here are the factors that I was just talking about. What factors are really going to be considering for determining eligibility? Total number of employees cannot exceed 500. So what they're doing is they're really targeting this to small business, eliminating the mega-sized corporations. Again, there are certain nuances to that. If you have kind of like a franchise model, there are certain provisions that you still may qualify. So check that SBA.gov website, but generally speaking, your firm can't exceed 500. You have had to have been operating on February 15, 2020. This is put in place to stop anyone claiming as a new business coming online now to try and prevent fraud. So that's a key provision. You have to be paying salaries and payroll taxes for all employees and paid independent contractors as of that February 15th date as well. And the SBA affiliation rules do not apply in determining eligibility. So just as I was mentioning, that gets worse if you have more than one location. So just please be mindful of that, and don't just assume. It's really important that you verify whether or not you can participate. Okay, what must a borrower receive to certify to receive a loan? What they're asking you to do is put a good faith effort in certifying that the uncertainty of your current economic conditions makes a loan necessary to support the operations of a business. So that is a very, very broad term. It's broad on purpose. The reason it's broad is because, again, the intent of this program is to inject business into small business to ensure the continuity of the economy. So it's purposely broad. With that, it raises questions about whether or not I have been impacted. Generally speaking, I would say most small businesses have been impacted, whether it's working remotely, whether it's a reduction in headcount, whatever the case may be. A lot of businesses have been impacted. So really what they're doing is just asking you for a good faith certification that you have been impacted when you actually go to apply for this loan. Additionally, the business has not received any paychecks, or any other assistance between February 15th and December 31st, nor is there an application pending. So basically what all that means is they're preventing you from double dipping. They don't want you to have an application for help in one area while also applying for this. Okay, how much can I borrow? We'll have a little bit of a graphic here just to basically show you. So you calculate your average monthly payroll during the last 12 months prior to the loan origination. You multiply that number by 2.5. So if your average monthly payroll is $10,000, you can borrow up to $25,000, and there's a cap of $10 million if you have, if your payroll expenses are very high. So here's basically what you need to look at. Again, loans can be up to 2.5%, multiplied by 2.5 times of the borrower's average monthly payroll cost. So again, if your average monthly payroll costs are $10,000, you can borrow up to $25,000. So here's just the way you can think about it. Sum of all included payroll costs minus the sum of all excluded payroll costs gives you total payroll costs. It's a very simple formula. I would encourage everyone to look at the U.S. Chamber of Commerce. They have a great 2 or 3 page PDF that outlines exactly what's included and what's not included. We have that resource here at 12 Points as well that we happy to circulate to everyone. And it's one of the other websites that we'll be talking about at the end of the presentation that you can use to better understand exactly what's going on. Okay, so what counts as payroll costs? This is kind of the broader question. So salary, wages, commissions, tips, etc. It is important to note that it is capped at $100,000 for an annual employee expense. So, for example, if you run a business in which you have a lot of highly compensated employees exceeding $100,000, $100,000 is where the cap is going to be. So they're not going to allow you to include payroll if you're paying someone $1 million a year. Benefits that are included are costs for vacation, family, medical, and sick leave, allowance for dismissal, payments for healthcare provisions, including insurance premiums and retirement benefits, state and local taxes that are assessed on compensation. For a sole proprietor, again, sole proprietors and independent contractors are included in these provisions. So for a sole proprietor or independent contractor, wages, commissions, income, net earnings from self-employment, again, to that same $100,000 cap, are on an annualized basis for each employee. Okay, so here is really where the rubber meets the road. And that is this idea that these loans will be forgiven if certain criteria are met. Again, how they're going to actually administer this and what the details are still forthcoming. So please know that beforehand. We don't have perfectly clear guidance as exactly how this will happen. But again, going back to the intent of this program is for this to be generally a loan forgiveness program. So how does that happen? If the loan proceeds are used to cover payroll costs and most mortgage, interest, rent, and utilities over the 8-week period after the loan is made. So 8 weeks after the loan is made, that's the period in time that if you use the majority of the money to cover payroll, mortgage, interest, et cetera, that's where the loan will be forgiven. Employee and compensation levels must be maintained. If you lay off employees, their compensation is not going to be allowed to be included. The whole point of this program, again, going back to the intent is to keep employees on the payroll and to inject cash into small businesses to help mitigate the impact on not only the employees but the economy as a whole. So the employees must be maintained and still compensated at their old levels for the loan to actually be forgiven. In terms of repayment of the loan, until it is potentially forgiven, the interest will be deferred for up to 6 months. But exactly what interest rate you'll get, is still to be determined. The lenders that we have spoken with personally have indicated to us that they are running all of these at the same term, whether it's 5-year term, 4% interest rate, et cetera, just to get through the volume of applications. They're not taking individual underwriting. There's no personal guarantee that you have to submit. There's no credit check. Again, this is just a way to get cash into the system to help these businesses that are struggling. Okay, going back to whether or not you're eligible. So again, small business, fewer than 500 employees. If you're a 501c3, also so you have to be smaller than 500 employees. Sole proprietors count. Independent contractors count. Any individual who is self-employed or carries on a trade or business. If there's a tribal concern, that counts as well. So this law is written very, very broadly. So if your business is probably included if you feel like you meet the criteria listed on this page. So please double check beforehand, but don't dismiss it out of hand if you have any questions. So this goes back to what I was just discussing, whether what you do to qualify. Again, that the specific language, the uncertainty of current economic conditions make the loan necessary to support ongoing operations. Given what is happening in this, not only in this country but worldwide, the definition of uncertainty of current economic conditions, that is broad on purpose, and I would say most every single business outside of a hospital probably qualifies as having some uncertainty as to whether or not the economic conditions make it possible for them to continue in whatever capacity that they're currently operating. So that it's broad on purpose. It's meant to help as many people as possible. And again, the goal is that the bar will use the proceeds to retain workers and maintain payroll. That's a very critical distinction, and that's really where the focus of the program is isolated. And again, getting back to if it will be forgiven, the borrower is eligible for loan forgiveness again over that 8-week period. The payroll cost, using the same definition of payroll cost that determines your eligibility, basically keeping the levels of your employees' compensation the same. Interest on mortgage obligations, rent or leasing agreements, payments on utilities, borrows for tipped employees and additional wages, et cetera, et cetera. And then, most importantly, the loan forgiveness cannot exceed the principal. That's obvious in most cases. You can't have something forgiven that's greater than the amount you initially received, but it is still very much worth noting. Resources and questions. Again, what we were really trying to do today is really give you some of the highlights that kind of provoke a thought that you may be able to benefit from these provisions, whether you're an individual worried about taking cash from an IRA account or potentially receiving money from the Treasury, or a small business, and what provisions are available to you. There are three resources here that I'm listing that we have found have had just a tremendous amount of information, and they've produced the information in a format that's digestible and that's easy to read and that is clear. Those three are the SBA, who is actually administering this program, the U.S. Chamber of Commerce. They have a great summary of exactly what's going to be included from a small business perspective that I would encourage every small business owner just to read. It's only 3 or 4 pages long, but it really breaks down in explicit detail what you need to know, and shows you the calculations of what's going to be included, so you can appropriately apply for the amount that's right for you. Because again, we don't want to overborrow because it has to be a certain amount of your payroll cost. That's really where the focus of this provision is. And then the Tax Foundation is a nonprofit. They have, again, a bipartisan view of this whole legislation. It's very clear. It's written in plain English. So I would encourage anyone to use these resources as they go forward and trying to figure out if this is right for them and their particular situation. Additionally, if you're looking for a more detailed breakdown, I believe the final bill came in well over 1,000 pages. Your best bet for getting a more really kind of nuts and bolts with the exact IRS codes and all those other things, major U.S. law firms and accounting firms, KPMG, Ernst & Young, PwC, they're going to have really good in-depth resources that are probably a little bit more technical. That if you were looking for that type of format, those would be good places as well to get that information. There's also going to be a plethora of information that's going to be blasted out onto the internet. I would encourage everyone, just be careful about the source you're reading this information. Even in the short time that we've had to kind of digest from our partners that we work with to get this information out, we have seen mistakes from other credible institutions, just due to the fact that this is changing so quickly, and some of the rules we're living in very much in the 90% middle gray area. So just be careful of your sourcing. If you do have any firm questions, government agencies, and again, as I mentioned, firms that are really significant in size, that have a large national presence, are probably your safest bet. Random blogs and other things, and Twitter and other social media outlets, I would try to steer clear from and really get it from an accredited source. These three that we have found, in addition to the partners that we work with to kind of corroborate this information, have found to be the most helpful, mainly due to the fact that they're able to communicate it in clear language and give you actionable steps to take to hopefully benefit from this. As I mentioned, the application is going to be standardized, and is available on the SBA.gov website. So whether you're applying at Joe's Bank or Mary's Bank or Bank of America or Eastern Bank or Webster Bank or whatever the case may be, the application is going to be exactly the same. Make sure you have your payroll information. That's going to be a critical document that, as far as documentation is concerned, to actually get these loans processed. And if you do want to apply, again, I wouldn't say it's too late, because it only opened today, but time is important. There's going to be a lot of interest in people participating in these loans, given exactly how difficult times have become. So if you want to participate, it's better that you get the process moving now, to ensure that you're at least put to the top of the pile. If you have a pre-existing relationship with an SBA lender, that is the best place to start. It's probably going to be very difficult to get them via phone, I would venture a guess that most institutions will have an automatic message on their receiver board, so that if you do call, they will either guide you to their website or some other mechanism to actually process these. They're going to get tens of thousands of applications from small businesses far and wide, and there is a cap on the dollars as of now that the government is willing to lend into this program. So I would encourage everyone to be efficient, acknowledging that there's still some details to be worked out. But if you do want to participate, and if it's appropriate for your situation, to not waste any time, because it is important that you get this information in sooner rather than later. And again, in our view, the best place to start is someone that you already have a pre-existing relationship with. It's still not going to be quick. It's not going to be smooth. There's going to be a million hiccups along the way. Any type of government program that is run at this scale, we really haven't seen it at this scale, to be perfectly honest, but any other type of rebate program or ability for the government to process applications in such a large volume is going to take time. So please have some patience. These institutions are generally not equipped to handle the volume that they're going to be receiving, but they will get to it in time. So again, if you have a relationship, that's going to be your best bet. Okay, so that's what we have here. Bear with me here 1 second. So what I want to do is, is turn it over for any questions. If those listening don't have any questions right now, you can always email me. You can always email info@12pointswealth.com as well, and we will be happy to share with you anything that we know up until this point, and any changes that we're aware of as they come down the pike. Obviously, things are very fluid right now, but we wanted to give you this information as quickly as possible because we know it's going to be it's important for everyone. Bear with me here 1 second. I'm just trying to get these questions up. Okay. So if anyone has any questions, doesn't look like we have any right now. Bear with me 1 second. So question about student loans. So I'm just going to read here, 0% student loan interest rate until September 30. Is it smart to stop the auto payments and save the money until then? A bulk payment against the loan could make a snowball's method of repayment easier. So there, as per the guidance that we have received so far, the interest will not accrue while these loans are basically at 0% until deferment. So if you are making those loans and you want to continue to make them, then that's entirely up to you. This is kind of a very personal question. There's nothing wrong, however, if you want to stop your automatic payments until then. You're not going to be really hurt in any other way. You really have to think and really consider what the ability for you to continue to generate your current level of income. What is most important is ensuring that you can meet your other expenses, such as your rent, any type of food or grocery expenses, and your current utilities, things that just kind of get you by. And student loans, given the fact that they're given this provision of stopping collection on them, at least it looks like through the end of the year, as of the current guidance, then it would be, if you're okay with that, then I don't see any issue with stopping those payments for the current time being and saving that money. The one thing I would say, if you do take that approach, it's really important that if you do stop any type of loan payment for student loans, as this question is suggesting, that money actually does find its way into an emergency savings or other type of savings account. The biggest trap that people fall into when they take that course of action is that they don't actually take the money that they were paying towards a loan, and it doesn't actually end up in their savings account. So just make sure that if you do take that action, that money is actually saved, given the fact that everyone's at home, everyone's kind of variable expenses are rather low these days. But that is an important point I wanted to bring up. Okay, it looks like, let's see, any more questions? Okay, so again, if anyone has any questions, I'm just going to go back to the top. Please feel free to send me an email, and we will either put you in contact with those who can help or answer them ourselves if we have any insight to the question that you're asking. There's a lot of moving pieces. We understand that it's a complicated time. but we're here to help in whatever way we possibly can, even if it's connecting to someone who can better assist you on the small business side. Again, before you make any kind of major decisions, run it by your advisor if you're an individual. We want to ensure that we don't do anything that's going to hurt our ability to get through this to the other side, and we'll take it from there. Thank you again for everyone for participating. Again, if you have any questions, dan@12pointswealth.com, or you can email info@12pointswealth.com as well. Again, I hope everyone is staying safe. I hope everyone has a wonderful day, and we will keep you apprised as best we can with any updates as we have them through our distribution channels. And if you're a current client, we'll obviously keep you informed as best we can. Thank you everyone for joining. And if you have anything else, please feel free to give us a call, shoot us an email. We're happy to help in whatever way we can. Thanks so much.